York's classic rock, Q1043.
I'm Jim Kerr, along with Shelley Sunstein. Say hi, Shelley.
Good morning.
And our producer, Trevor.
Hello, all.
And a brand new friend of ours, Rob Dietrich, who has a really interesting story to tell. You know, we and Metallica have teamed up to celebrate Batch 100 of Metallica's Blackened American whiskey. And Rob is the second master distiller to work with Blackened. Congratulations and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Now, you have not only a background as a distiller. I know you worked for a good many years creating a very famous single malt, but you also have a rock and roll background.
I do, yeah. I spent about 10 years working as an independent, kind of independent person in the music industry, working as stage manager, rigger, lighting tech. Started out in San Francisco with Bill Graham Presents back in '96.
Well, that's where all the legendary shows were produced as part of Bill Graham Presents over the entire Western United States. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
So,
and you actually worked with Metallica at Lollapalooza?
Yeah, that was Lollapalooza '96, and I was working as a rigger on that show, and then I also got to push. I got to work their actual show. I still have the T-shirt from it, because I was such a huge fan of Metallica. So it's just cool to see this full circle coming back around music business, whiskey, all the way back to music business.
But to let our friends know what the music business is like, you worked with Metallica, you were on the stage, but you didn't meet them.
No, I was just a stagehand. I was pushing boxes, pushing boxes, which is that's pretty common. You work around a lot of great folks and a lot of famous bands, so you're kind of working with them, but not working with them.
Right. It's an interesting world. I remember years ago talking to some guys who were in a famous band, and they had just finished a nationwide tour opening for another band more famous than they.
Sure.
And I asked them what the headliners were like. And remember, they had just come off a multi-month national tour, and the opening band members told me they never, during the entire tour, not even once, met any of the headliners.
Wow,
crazy.
That's crazy.
So
That's crazy.
that can happen. But eventually, you did meet with the members of Metallica because you had to go on a job interview.
I did. That was my first time meeting the band. Was the first job interview I'd had in like 15 years. So it was, hadn't gone on an interview in a long time, and I get to meet my favorite metal band of all time at the same time. So no pressure.
Well, even though you were accomplished as a distiller, were you nervous?
I mean, yes, certainly in a way. I mean, I'm meeting these mega rock stars for the first time, but also I spent a lot of time in the music industry, and I just understand it's treating people like people. That's just the way I would with anyone. You approach it with an open heart and an open mind, and just confidence in what your abilities are.
And you revealed to them that you had worked with them before.
I did, yes. I told that to James Hetfield when I met him. I said, I worked that show in '96. I said, it was just after you guys cut your hair. And he's like, yeah, everybody hated us for that.
Well, Shelley loves Metallica.
Oh,
yeah.
I do.
Awesome. Yeah. They're so fantastic to work for. It's incredible organization, incredible band. They're so passionate and just so meticulous to the detail of their music. That's the way they approach every project, and that's why I'm so ecstatic to work for them, because the way they approached the whiskey was the same way. They wanted it to be the very best thing But
I have to tell you, there is a local hospital in Philadelphia that is using, as part of their COVID-19 salute to healthcare workers commercial, Nothing Else Matters. And it
awesome.
just so resonates. Like, you are transfixed watching this commercial and you get so emotional. I love that song.
That's likewise. That's amazing. That is so cool.
Well, all of us, well, I don't know if I can speak for all of us, all the people of the world, but most of us, we came to our love of rock music when we were very young. You no doubt had that same experience. When did you develop your love of whiskey?
That came much later. The love of music, my parents have an amazing vinyl collection, which I now have. So that came early on. Whiskey, I think, I started out like whiskey and Coke, and I think at one point there was an epiphany of like, wait, I don't actually like it like this. I'm covering up the taste of whiskey. And I had a friend of mine show me how to drink whiskey for the first time, without covering it up with, soda. And it was just this mind blowing kind of next level. It's like, when Dorothy walks into, Oz, and it's, it goes from black and white to color. I was like, oh, wait, there's a whole world of whiskey out here.
Well, I know with whiskey specifically, mouthfeel is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you chill filter a whiskey, it does thin out a whiskey a little bit. Or you can kind of, there's obviously flavor profile, that viscosity of the whiskey, how it rolls around the sides of your tongue and your mouth. All these things are important in the enjoyment of tasting a whiskey.
You'll have some people describe the experience with some whiskeys as like taking a sip of velvet.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nosing is just as important. I feel like sitting there, Glencairn glass, which is one of these guys here. It's got this kind of a fluted shape.
Mm-hmm.
That allows you to be able to nose the whiskey a lot better. And it's amazing. I could sit there with a great whiskey and nose it for like a good 3 to 5 minutes before you even take a sip, because there's just so much you can pick up off of just the olfactory.
Now, if there's a really fine whiskey that someone has in a glass, how offended do you get if the person decides, oh, let's do a shot of this?
I definitely, we're all adults, right? We can drink the way we want to. I try and help people a little bit and educate them on like, hey, why don't you try sipping it? I've done so many whiskey educations where I will preface by saying, okay, this isn't Cabo. We're not just going to shoot this back. We're actually going to enjoy this whiskey, and I'll show you how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think what it is, a lot of times people just don't realize that there are ways to drink whiskey. They're just like, oh, they're used to just doing a shot and then chasing it with a beer. But sipping a whiskey is, there's a little bit of an art to it. And I think, and everyone has the capability of doing it.
Well, you're talking about something that ultimately it comes from the earth. It comes from the soil. It comes from the grains, the materials that go into the manufacture of whiskey, the aging process. It's all very hands-on. It's all very physical. And as we're all stuck in our little respective places, locked down, how are you doing your job?
That's a great question. Osmosis of some sort. So our production facility is in upstate New York. It's in a small town called Mineville. So they ship me samples. So I've got all my graduated cylinders back here. This is kind of a little mini lab in my office. So they'll send me the samples, and I'll do the blending here, and I can create the blend and then give them the ratios. And the production, I'll send that information back to the production facility. Generally, I'd be out there once a month, but it's, obviously we've adjusted how we do our operations. So they're still in production. They're still cranking out the whiskey, and I'm still doing the blending here.
So you have an American blended whiskey.
Yes.
And how does it compare to, say, Scotch or Irish whiskey or some of the other whiskeys that are popular around the world, or the single malts that you worked on for so long?
Yeah, it's
what's
a lot
the
of
difference?
What's that?
What's the difference there?
Well, a lot of it is, there's going to be the terroir. Terroir is where you're getting your grains, your corn, the water source. So in Scotland, you're going to get, whiskey that has had water that's run through peat bogs and has imparted a flavor to the whiskey. In Kentucky, there's water that runs across limestone and imparts a mineral kind of aspect to it. In the past, making single malts whiskey in Colorado, we were using Rocky Mountain spring water. So each one of these water sources is going to affect the outcome of the flavor profile. And with our whiskey, with Blackened, we're using Tennessee whiskey, we're using Kentucky whiskey, we're using Indiana whiskey, we're using Canadian rye, Indiana rye. So we've got all these great bourbons and ryes that all are blended together, and they also all have their own sources. They all are using grain and corn from their own sources and their own water sources. So all those things combined, all these whiskeys that could stand independently alone on their own, we've taken them and blended them together to create something phenomenally unique. And then so it really does matter where all those ingredients come from. And then it's just like making a really nice dinner. You're taking this ingredient and this ingredient. When you put them all together, it creates something fantastic.
I know the Scots and the Irish are so competitive with one another that they don't even agree on how to spell the word whiskey.
Right. That's true.
Trevor, you have a question?
No, I'm actually just really excited to try it, because for me, when I do whiskey, at first I was like you with the Coke and always like covering up, or the ginger ale, something like that. So I'm excited to try something that's like kind of smoother, because a lot of people, like you said, shoot it back. So I don't know how this whiskey is supposed to feel when it goes down.
Well, the way I'll walk somebody through trying a whiskey and sipping on a whiskey is, nose it first, and keep your lips slightly parted. Breathe in through your mouth and your nose at the same time, so you don't get that flare of heat up in your nose. And that goes for any spirit, any whiskey. I do that with, I love mezcal. I'll do that with mezcal and just sit there and nose it. And then you want to take your first sip, just neat, and let it roll over the back and the sides of your tongue, the sides of your mouth. That will acclimate your mouth. And once that kind of settles down, and again, this is with any whiskey, taking that first sip to acclimate your mouth. Second sip, you're going to get a lot more of the flavor profile. And then if you have, a glass of water or something there, just a couple of drops of water in the whiskey will help that whiskey to open up and bloom. And that way you're really getting all the profile and understanding of what embodies the whiskey, and challenging your palate to, identify what it is you're tasting too. That's the, it's just like, well, this is good. Okay, well, why is it good? Does it taste like, is there a little bit of a hint of cinnamon in there, or vanilla, or maybe, how is it very oaky, that sort of thing.
Cinnamon, vanilla, Shelley, you like both of those.
This is so complicated. I didn't realize that this was so complicated. I mean, it's a whole process. I didn't know.
And it's kind of crazy. And I think it's really just when you're passionate about something, you want to learn everything about it. If you want to learn Spanish, you're just going to go down the rabbit hole and learn Espanol. But I think with whiskey, and I've been in the distilling whiskey for over 13 years and making whiskey for over 13 years. And for me, it just, all that means is that there's so much more to learn, that you can keep learning and keep learning. And that's exciting. I think when there's a world that you can just keep opening up doors and understanding even more about it, it's to me, that's just, that's what creates the excitement about it.
Can I ask you a question? How do you go from roadie to making whiskey? How did you make this transition? How did that happen?
I got a little burned out. I did the last tour I did was a pretty extensive one, and I got a little burned out, so I decided to take a little break. And I've always been someone who is kind of jumps off the ledge a little bit, just like, okay, I'm going to go do this now, and just throw myself completely into it. I was in the military before I did the music business. When I got out of the military, music business for 10 years. And then when I kind of got burned out, I moved to Korea for a little while. I was going to teach English. I was terrible at it. It was horrible.
That's a change.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm just going to leap off this shelf. I just wanted to get some international, just get out there and just do some things. And when I found out I was terrible at that, I came back to the U.S., came back to Denver, and I started working, kind of the circuit again in the music industry, but I was looking for something else, and I just happened to run into the head distiller for the whiskey I used to work for at a bar, and we were both working on motorcycle projects. I was my buddy and I had built a motorcycle with a diesel engine, and we were running on vegetable oil, and so we were into this alternative fuel. And the guy who was the head distiller here in Denver had a motorcycle that he was converting to run off the heads, which is the waste product from the still. And I was like, oh man, we should work on a bike together. So that's really how it started, was motorcycles.
That's so random. Wow.
I know. That is an amazing story. Now, if you were to ever watch TCM, Turner Classic Movies, they have a TCM branded wine, and they like to pair their wines with classic film. Now, this particular whiskey is paired with a rock band and their specific sound.
Absolutely.
How do you make them mesh together?
That's a great question. And this is where it's really exciting. We're taking traditional methods of making whiskey, aging whiskey, average 8 years in white American oak. And then we're cask finishing in black brandy barrels, which is Spanish brandy. And cask finishing has been around for a long time. I did a bunch of cask finishing at my old distillery. But, what is really exciting about this is that we are now applying this new innovation that Dave Pickerel, who was my former my predecessor for Blackened whiskey, he had this idea to use sound to kind of work with the aging process. And so what we do is we play music at a very, very low frequency, so low that you actually can't even hear it you can hear this vibrating hum. And what it does, that it's vibrating the barrel at such a rapid pace, the whiskey is moving in and out vigorously in the wood. So it's interacting with the wood and going past what we call the red line. I got a little bit of I got a visual here. There's the whiskey stave. So you can see this line right here. That's where the whiskey has gone past the char. The char draws all the natural sugars and the vanillins in the wood, the tannins in the wood to the burn surface. And when we're doing the black noise sonic enhancement process, where we're vibrating those barrels, all that whiskey's moving past that red line right there and picking up all these crazy flavors from beyond the red line. So it's really pretty extraordinary. The science behind it is pretty phenomenal.
Well, that would mean that the bass player is the most important part of the band for the whiskey process.
Right. Well, this is where the band gets to put their fingerprints on the process. So each member of the band takes turns picking out the playlist that we play for each batch. So each batch gets, we're doing the cask finishing. We're playing that playlist to it at that low frequency. And it's pretty, we get a lot of people who are saying, Robert Trujillo, who's the bass player for Metallica, we like his batches better because he always picks these bass forward, playlists. But Metallica as a band are very much a bass heavy sound. They're just and they're just so loud. It's amazing just to see what that music does. So we're literally making whiskey the traditional way, and we're making whiskey with music.
Shelley, isn't that crazy?
It is absolutely crazy.
Wild?
Because wouldn't this mean, so if you depending on who you work with, it would have a totally different taste?
Absolutely, it's just slightly different. You're always going to have your base ingredients. You're always going to have that the rye and the corn and your water profile are always going to remain the same. But what's going to change is that playlist. So each batch is going to be just slightly different. And we find that people are buying batches to compare with other batches to see which ones they like.
Hold on. So can it change also depending on the song?
Well, and that's what we're. They're changing their playlists are all different songs.
Right.
So if you think about, like Unforgiven is going to be a little softer, probably not as thumping as like Blackened or so yeah, I think it's certainly going to have some effect.
Wow.
That's
so crazy.
We're gonna have to spend an afternoon exploring this someday, Shelley.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, once we're through this.
Think of the
Meanwhile,
different,
meanwhile,
the different
Trevor
moods.
has the amazing boxed set.
Yes.
So why don't you hold it up there and
So we're gonna go right here.
Yeah.
I got the
Okay.
box set.
Okay, Rob,
Right.
if you can explain to look at the size of that. If you can explain to us what this is.
Yes, this is honestly, this is just one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. I've never seen, I've been in the whiskey business for a long time. I've never seen anything released like this. So this is batch 100. This is the Blackened batch 100, and I was very honored and humbled to have been asked by the band to create the playlist for batch 100. So this was the first time anybody but the band got to create the playlist. And for me, that was really exciting because I'm a Metallica fan in the first place. So I got to just dig down through my rabbit hole.
So you programmed the albums that are
yes,
yeah. Wow.
So I got to select the song. So I went down kind of a rabbit hole of there's some songs from 1989 live in Seattle. We got live in Mexico City. We got certain things all the way back to 89, all the way up to last year. So they decided to make it into a two vinyl record release. So there's 2 vinyl records in there with batch 100.
Well, let's open it up.
Okay, let's open it up, Trevor.
Yeah, let's see it.
What's in there?
I had so much fun opening up for the first time. Like I knew that the records were they were making records with it, but just the artwork, everything they did with this was just so phenomenal. The Blackened whiskey team has been fantastic.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'll turn down the light for a sec.
Okay.
I'll do the opposite. But it's hard to, maybe a little bit hard to see, but the artwork.
If you open it up, you can see that there's 2 records there.
Oh, yeah, it opens. Okay, I thought it was all meshed together. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so that's so they did the pictures on the front. You got the band with Dave Pickerel. You got Dave Pickerel on the front, and then on the other side, got myself with the band at the recording studio in
right
California.
Here. Yep.
And
you made yourself on the 2 disc here.
What's that?
You got yourself on 2 of the discs here, I see.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's completely just mind blowing to me and pretty exciting to be to be a part of this.
Well, he's the master distiller. Master is an important word, an important prefix. I mean, master distiller, you need to have his picture on both discs. Come on. Come on. And what else is in that box, Trevor?
Well, we got a whole bunch of stuff. I think I'm going to grab the most important thing, which would be actual batch, the bottle 100 right here.
Yeah. Awesome.
This is really cool.
So if you hold that up there again, Trevor, if everyone looking at, you can see that it looks like sound waves right there behind the word Blackened.
Uh-huh.
And those sound waves are those are an actual sound wave of James Hetfield singing the word Blackened.
Oh.
Wow.
So it's a real sound wave.
So Jim and Shelley, the thing from behind that I can see as I spin it looks like, I'm recording you guys for the radio, like a whole interview. Just by spinning the bottle like this, you can see the waves going up and down, reflected in the actual liquid. It's insane to look at it, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is very, very cool.
That's one of the things I liked about this is that, Metallica didn't want to just, slap Metallica all over a whiskey. They wanted the whiskey to stand on its own and be made by a master distiller. And that was Dave Pickerel. And then,
and people can order the amazing limited edition batch 100 box set at blackenedwhiskey.com.
Correct. They can go to blackenedwhiskey.com, and once they will be directed to where they can buy it online. So that's which is obviously very beneficial during this time, since most of us aren't venturing very far.
And how perfect for Father's Day, right?
Perfect timing.
And what do you have there, Trevor?
Well, we've got some Blackened pins that also come in the box set. We got the little patch that says that they're a gold medal award-winning whiskey. You got your stickers that come with it as well. And of course, because it's Metallica, the Blackened guitar pick that you got to have.
All right.
Remastered.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good line.
And then right here, this is issue number 1 that we were talking about on the morning show
of the magazine.
Of the magazine, Zine 1.
Yeah,
that comes with the box. I'm gonna put it all here with the other camera to show.
Yeah, inside that zine is all the descriptions of the songs.
Oh yeah, here's the playlist.
Yeah.
Yep, playlist, and then inside you'll be able to see different songs, and yep, there you go.
On each thing. So I have a question for you. So what was harder? Was it making the whiskey, picking the playlist, or growing those sideburns that you have? Because most people don't have a mustache or a beard, but you were just stuck right with just the sideburns.
Yeah, you know, they used to be red.
This is
very
really cool.
distinguished.
Yeah, thank
The
you.
look,
Very kind.
yeah.
You know, I think the hard part was picking the playlist, because how do you pick just 12 songs?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they have so many great songs. Narrowing it down to just 12 was ridiculous. And,
well, Shelley, you and me, looking back over the many years that we've known one another, we've had some of our best times sitting next to each other over a glass of whiskey and conversation. So when we get a chance, we're going to have to open up a bottle of Blackened when this whole thing is over.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I gotta say, you know, something I'm fond of saying is that whiskey is the original social media. You know, before there was social media, whiskey was what brought people together.
And with that, we bid you adieu. That was a perfect way to say goodbye. Hold that bottle up again there, Trevor. And remember, you can go to blackenedwhiskey.com for all of the information. Well, Rob, Dietrich, congratulations to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
I know you come to New York from time to time.
I do. So I'd love to meet in person, share a dram with everyone.
We would love it.
Awesome.
As a matter of fact, we would love to take you out and buy your own whiskey with our money as we watch you drink it.
Fair enough. I mean, you know, I got the best job in the world.
Oh, we do. We would argue with you there.
We can discuss that over a nice glass of whiskey. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for your service heading into Memorial Day
much.
weekend. Yeah.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.